Hello and welcome to this week's Wild Spirits News. My name is Sibylle and today's subject is Don't Be So Silly. Actually, the title is a lie. Your mission today is to be silly. And now that I've said it, I hope with all my heart that you're not going to stop watching, as it always happens whenever I publish anything on the subject of the inner child, fun, joy, and all these things, because people think, yeah, that's all good and well, but I want to get somewhere in life. I want to pursue my passion. I want to be successful. I want to get ahead. And then they don't listen or watch or read and miss out on the most powerful engine towards achieving all that you want to achieve. So please bear with me. I'll start this with a little story, actually. I started out which many people don't know these days, I started out my professional life as a university teacher, and then later as a teacher still at university, but also in private language schools, teacher of German as a foreign language. I still do that sometimes because I love teaching so much. There's only one thing I love more than teaching, and that's coaching. But I can't always not teach. Sometimes I still have to do it. And I remember many years ago, this was like in the late 90s, I was teaching a group in a language school. I was teaching a group of students of about 8 or 10 students, and they were business people. Now these were very serious people, very focused, but it was a bit of a drag, this class. I always wished they would lighten up a little bit and try to make them lighten up, and it didn't have much success until one day. Now they were still beginners, maybe early intermediate, but mostly still beginners. There wasn't much in terms of conversation still possible, or possible yet. But I set them, I thought I'd dare it. We had a lesson on, I think it was cooking ingredients of kitchen stuff, foods, this kind of vocabulary. And I put them into groups of 3, and I said, each of your groups is going to write a story on this subject, and the story needs to contain a witch, I gave them the German word for that, a witch and a crook. And they looked at me aghast. A story? And I said, well, just take 20 minutes and talk to each other and try to come up with something. And I just left them to it. It was quiet in the room. They were like whispering to each other in really low voices. And then after a few minutes, somebody started to giggle. A bit of a more lively discussion came up in another group. And after a few minutes, the entire atmosphere of the room changed. There was lively chatter, lots of laughter, people shouting over each other with their ideas. And they were having the time of their lives because they had tapped into their creativity through silliness, through this powerful agent of silliness. And by the way, it wasn't just fun, this lesson, but the vocabulary that they learned in that lesson is one of the easiest retained vocabulary for all of them. I had them for a long time, and a year later they still remembered all the words they learned in that particular lesson, because that is another effect of silliness. It accesses parts in our brain. It really ingrains things in our brains. It's one of the most powerful agents of learning, of studying, of retaining, of creating, of stimulating creativity, and stimulating productivity and success. So your first task today is to infuse silliness into your work. You're probably going to think, how is that going to happen? I work in an office. Obviously it depends on your job. You can't, it's not always appropriate. I mean, if you're a brain surgeon, then maybe don't do a silly dance while you have somebody's head sliced open in front of you. Do it whenever it is appropriate and possible. But it is possible almost everywhere. And do it if your colleagues and your boss are not open to this kind of thing. At least do it for yourself as much as you can. I mean, it helps if you work at home, nobody can see you. But even if you're in an office environment, and this goes especially if you have a problem, if you're puzzling over something, or you have a very tedious, long report, like writing a report or a memo that you don't particularly like, or things with lots of numbers, Excel sheets and all the rest. Try and infuse some silliness into that, or at least take a break and do something silly. Do a silly walk on the stairs when nobody sees you, or take a walk outside and break into dance. Do something else, because that'll make it happen so much more quickly. And also do something silly with the work itself. Open a second document where you just make the numbers dance, or make them, or put the numbers into figurines, or draw something, make them into a picture. Make a couple of zeros into a cloud, and all this stuff. You don't need to let anyone else see it, but infuse some silliness and some laughter into it, and see what happens to your productivity, and you will be surprised. Whilst at the beginning you'll think, I'm wasting time here, I can't afford to waste time. In the end you'll realize that you got the work done in half the time, including the silliness. And you had more fun, and you're less stressed, and you're less tired at the end of the day, which is also a good thing. Even things like housework, work at home. I remember being as a visitor at my sister's house, and I don't remember the context, she breaking into some silly song with some repeated words and walking around the house with her throwing up her feet. So the right leg and the left leg, and her two daughters went behind her in a kind of a train, and they walked through the entire house throwing up their feet and singing this silly song, and me there on the kitchen table doubled up in laughter because it's just so stupid. But they had the time of their lives, and it was a completely normal day. That's how you brighten up your life, and that's how you make room in your head for things that are important, which are your passions. And this is the next task. Your second task is silliness and passions. Now, it depends on your passion, once again, like it depended on your work, what you can do. But especially if your passion is something to do with creativity. If it is writing, music, dancing, painting, crafting, anything. I don't know anybody who creates anything who's never had a block. Writer's block, here in front of a white paper. One of my clients who's a writer and had that problem for a while, at some point just started typing on her white paper, on her white document on her computer, blah, 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 blah. And by the third line of typing blah, 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 she started laughing because she felt like a complete idiot. And then she wrote some other stupid stuff, and very soon the first page was full with complete nonsense. But she was writing something. The page was no longer blank. That shock state of being confronted with a white page was gone. And that same afternoon she started writing again. It's not a coincidence. It's actually, there are studies about that. It's a proven process. You need to access different parts of your brain. If you can't solve a problem with focus and with concentration, then you need to access a different part of your brain in order to solve the problem, in order to resolve the block and get flowing again. And this goes for every art there is, and for every craft, and even if your passion is a sport, for example, don't take yourself and your sport too seriously. Have a lot of fun with it. That's what it's all about. Passion is about joy. So infuse joy into it, even if you do something competitively and really need to train and all the rest. Don't forget to also bring this into it, because that again clears new pathways, neural pathways, new ways in your brain, and new creativity, and new sources of productivity and performance. Your third task is, as usual, to let me know. Just hit the reply button on the email that you got the link to the video with, and let me know how this resonates with you. Have you ever used silliness in that way? Or if you haven't, are you planning to? How are you planning to infuse it into your passions and or your work? I would love to hear from you about this, so just reply to the email. And if you didn't get the link to this video with an email, that means you're not part of the Wild Spirits community yet, and you should join us. Go to wildspiritscoaching.com and fill in the little form there, or do the life audit there, the free life audit. When you send me your results there, one of the results is also that you're going to be subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter is 100% spam free. You get one email per week, and that's it. You get lots of additional information, as well as the link to the week's video, resources, recommendations, and lots of background info for yourself as well. So go to wildspiritscoaching.com and join up. And you can also Google Wild Spirits Coaching. That'll get you to my website as well. Thank you for watching.